SEGA is definitely one of my favorite companies of all time, probably second only behind Nintendo. I grew up playing SEGA systems. I love the Genesis, the Saturn, the Dreamcast. I love the 32X, the SEGA CD, the Master System. I love SEGA. And yes, they haven't been that great since they left the hardware market, in my opinion, but still there have been, shades of greatness from SEGA again. And it seems like something is going on at SEGA. A couple, probably a year or so ago, I made a campaign to make SEGA great again. And probably none of you watched that video because my channel was much smaller at the time. Virtua Fighter has been regulated to digital downloads only and appearing on Super Smash Bros. For Nintendo consoles. That is sacrilege of a beautiful fighting franchise that was brought forth from your company. But still, I've been on this crusade to make SEGA great again, and it seems like it's finally working, or something to some degree, because there's a whole lot of stuff going on at SEGA right now that's really interesting, and I want to talk about it because I want to explore the different options. So what is going on with SEGA? Is SEGA about to make this huge comeback in 2017? Let's discuss it. So what exactly am I talking about when it comes to SEGA showcasing that they are maybe ready to come back full force into the world of video games? Well, recently, during their investors conference, I believe it was, they made an announcement that they were going to start revisiting old IPs again. And that's sort of becoming a popular thing. You actually saw Konami bring back Bomberman on the Nintendo Switch, which was completely out of left field. So a lot of these companies are starting to look at their old IPs and realize, hey, these still have value in 2017 and people appreciate them. But that's not really a big deal to me because I'm always, actions speak louder than words. Companies can say whatever they want, but if it doesn't come to fruition, I don't really care. And SEGA so far, although they just made this announcement, hasn't brought back any IPs. So that's not really one of the main focal points I want to focus on. I really want to focus on this new corporate identity. So they've recently changed their corporate identity to Amazing SEGA. And that's really interesting because if anything, SEGA isn't very amazing right now. They really haven't been amazing, in my opinion, since the Dreamcast days. And, we've had versions of Sonic that some were good and some were bad, but a lot of the classic IPs, just haven't been represented. Phantasy Star, Shining Force, Virtua Fighter, Streets of Rage. There's so many countless SEGA franchises that are great franchises that belong in 2017 that we haven't seen. So renaming your corporate identity to Amazing SEGA, that honestly speaks volumes about yourself because you're really putting yourself on a higher plateau. That would be like, Nintendo saying best Nintendo or something. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's a lot to live up to if your corporate identity is Amazing SEGA. Amazing. The word amazing has a lot of things, a lot of connotations to it. And I think if you're going to say that, you really need to be gearing up for something big. So that, in my opinion, shows that SEGA is gearing up for something big, whether it's based on these old IPs or based on something new that I'm going to talk about, basically just some ideas of what I think SEGA could be potentially doing. And the final thing is SEGA Forever. So a Twitter account that's actually verified by Twitter recently popped up at the end of 2016 that showed no interaction. And now all of a sudden there's a subreddit on Reddit that is for SEGA Forever, and now it's been taken over by SEGA. And so now we have SEGA Forever, an Amazing SEGA, and SEGA wanting to return to old IPs. So what does this all mean? What is actually going to come of this? Are we going to see something big out of SEGA? First and foremost, you are not seeing the Dreamcast 2. Please, please do not talk about the Dreamcast 2. The Dreamcast 2 is not real. The Dreamcast 2 is not real. So what potential options are there? The first option, of course, would be the simplest option, and that would be actually bringing back these old IPs, showcasing a new Shining Force, showcasing a new Virtua Fighter game. Fighters are super popular now. Look at Tekken 7. Everyone's talking about Tekken 7. Virtua Fighter, to me, is a little better than Tekken. Sorry, Tekken fanboys, but it's true. I like Virtua Fighter a little bit more. So I could totally see them returning to the gaming field with these classic franchises, and that seems like the most logical solution. But still, is that really amazing? Is that really SEGA Forever? It feels like it would be a little bit of a disappointment, honestly, unless they came out, rapid fire with a bunch of different games, a brand new Shining Force, or maybe, a complete Shining Force 3 collection, since we never got the other version stateside. We only got part 1 of that on the SEGA Saturn. Maybe a Dreamcast compilation disc or something like that. But honestly, once again, that's not really amazing to me. So I've been thinking about it, I've been racking my brain, and I've come up with a couple different things, I think. And the first thing that I would like to see, that I don't think is necessarily a possibility, but could be very cool, would be the inclusion of more SEGA systems on Nintendo's upcoming virtual console for the Nintendo Switch. I don't mean just Genesis, I don't mean just Game Gear. I'm talking Sega Saturn, and I'm talking Dreamcast. There are more than enough games across the library of SEGA systems to put on the Nintendo Switch's virtual console that would be good. You know, games like Knights, games like Shining Force 3, games like Virtual Fighter 2, games like Daytona USA, House of the Dead. There's a myriad of SEGA IPs that they completely own and they could do a lot with. So I think that would be really cool if they came onto the virtual console with Saturn, Dreamcast, Genesis, and Game Gear stuff, and even Master System stuff. But I don't know if that's really a potential thing because we know nothing about Nintendo's upcoming virtual console quite yet. Of course, we could learn more about that at E3, but that's just something I personally would like to see. What I actually think we might see is, sort of follow me on this, so sort of like a PC-based SEGA thing, almost like a Steam service or maybe a subscription service where you have access to all of these first-party SEGA games from all of the platforms, from the Master System to the Dreamcast. And, you know, you pay a subscription service, maybe you can play X amount of games, or you could download games and pay for them at, you know, a discounted price. Once again, there's enough content on there to make something like that work. And I think it would be really interesting to see, especially if they decide to, you know, try both things. You know, bring back these old IPs, but, you know, to be the amazing SEGA, and then do SEGA Forever and talk about your old games and your old IPs, games like Crazy Taxi, you know, arcade games that never came out, games that never came stateside from SEGA. There's more than enough SEGA games out there to do something really special with this. Now, whether or not SEGA will do that really remains to be seen. Like I said, if you're coming out with amazing SEGA, SEGA Forever, and talking about bringing back your old IPs, you better step up to the plate, SEGA, because right now, the world is looking at you. You haven't had the world looking at you in quite some time, and everyone's on the edge of their seat right now, especially in the gaming community, like, yo, what is SEGA up to? So SEGA, the ball is in your court. The ball is in your court, and I want to see you slam dunk it. I want to see all my favorite franchises back. I want to see classic games revisited. I want to see, you know, something different. I want to see something amazing. SEGA, we're gonna make you great again, one way or another. Bring back those old IPs. Put Sega Saturn and Dreamcast on the Switch Virtual Console, or do your little Steam-like service. I think there's a lot of potential out there, and it'll be very interesting to see what SEGA does, because if they disappoint me, I'll be right back here making another video. So what do you think of everything? Do you think Sega's gonna revisit these old IPs? What do you think of Amazing SEGA and SEGA Forever? Let me know in the comment section down below. I'm gonna put some links to articles in the description box so you guys can kind of follow a little bit more in depth what this Amazing SEGA and SEGA Forever stuff is all about. And I'll catch you guys next time. Make SEGA great again. Later.
RGT 85. RGT 85. RGT 85.